Let's start lesson. Hi everyone. Today we are going to start with the new topic because last time what we did was the CSS and Java, the HTML. Okay. Now, so far the lessons were quite simple. Like the HTML had nothing to do with CSS, and the CSS was mostly because was most about the designing, and it was a really simple language. Now today our topic is quite more into programming because we are starting with JavaScript. Now, what's JavaScript? I'm going to start with a lot of infographic representations and much more. Okay. So let's just start. I'm going to share my screen, and while I will be sharing my screen, uh, definitely I'm going to close my camera so it doesn't make any kind of distraction while I'm explaining. So, yeah, welcome back to the new lesson. So let's get started. So today the topic is about what's JavaScript. Now, before starting with any programming language, we need to know about why exactly do we need any programming language. Like, why do we need any? Why do we need to learn programming? I know my new keyboard is actually kind of too slow. Languages. Okay. And that's the basic question. Like, if someone asks you why do we need to learn the programming language, you need to get the answer ready because we live in a kind of a generation where things are getting much simpler. People are not learning what they were learning before. Like the older days, people used to learn more about how does the machine work, and they were dealing with more practically with the machine languages like the binary one. Do we need to learn those, and how does all this thing work, and how does a programming language work? Like, how do we work with computers? Okay, now these were the questions that comes these are the questions that come up in our mind when we are starting working with the computers that doing any kind of programming languages. So far we were doing HTML and CSS. Definitely there are also some kind of sort of programming languages, but today we'll start with JavaScript. Actually what it does, I'll tell you what. Let's say I'm gonna write a text here. Let's just say, let's make it 24, and why do we use JavaScript? Now, I'm going to show you some kind of really simple diagram that's going to be in your head for a long time, and you can memorize it or at least just understand it about why actually we need JavaScript. So if in future, if someone asks you, you will be able to explain them. Let's just say we have our web page, okay? That this is our web page. Cool. Now, so far what we have done was, I'm going to pick the other tool. And let's say, so far what we have done was we added HTML to it. Okay, we just wrote an HTML to it. Cool. So we added HTML to our code. And what HTML does was it gives the content. Let's say it just added the title, it gave kind of the content, it put the paragraphs, we added the images and much more. So we added, let's say from all the HTML, we added images, we added the title or the headings. What do you say? The headings, um, other contents. Cool. Great. Now, what does we what did we do? What we did next? CSS, right? Our next lesson was about CSS. Now, what did actually CSS does was what it actually did was, um, let's say we just added a CSS code. I'm gonna write CSS over there. Let's just keep it CSS. Now, CSS actually help us designing the web page. Now, HTML was basically for putting the contents and adding what we needed, exactly the basic, like adding the paragraphs, the pictures, the text, and much more. While the CSS will help us to design and give our web page a kind of a really good look. So CSS took the care of, let's say, colors. I'm gonna add this really simple attributes over here. So colors, let's say designs. Am I spelling it wrong? Maybe. I'm just kind of a little confused because of kind of but that's fine. Colors, designs. What else with it? Yeah, let's just say giving fixes to the code like our margin, the paddings, and much more. And even it give much good final touches, a lot more. Okay, and yeah, there were definitely lot more things. Now, why do we need to use JavaScript then if we can just put the content and give it a design, and that should be it, right? For being a really starter web page, that's it. But JavaScript, let's say, why do we need to get JavaScript? JavaScript will do something that's going to be quite different. Let's just pick a different color for JavaScript. Let's take the yellow one. All right, now JavaScript will help us to do something else. Let's just write JavaScript. Was that too low? Okay, this was fine. So JavaScript will help us to get our code more user interface. I'm just gonna write, I write interface, okay? More user interface, more dynamic, because so far we were just making the website that is static, just like the pictures, the content, the designs. But JavaScript will make it more dynamic, will make it more functional, okay? Will even give your web page some logic. Now, what's logic? I'm going to teach you about that. Now, so far, you might get some idea about what's happening right now. So we are using three simple, easier languages for getting started to build web pages. It's not definitely the web developers are right now using some more kind of advanced technologies, but this is the place where we all started. So you might be getting some ideas about, I just try to make it so simple. So might be having some ideas about how it's working, right? You just get the HTML, you add the design from CSS, and you get the JavaScript running. And that all together give you some kind of really good web page. Now, let's just see what exactly JavaScript gives you. I'm gonna try to move all of it. The most easiest way, let's just write HTML, yep, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. Now, to being more simple, let's say HTML help us to add one button over here. I know my drawing is so bad, and one button over there. Cool. While CSS help us to give some colors into it. Let's say this one to be the red color, this one to be a green color. All right, and some kind of cool designings, uh, much more padding, margins, and all. JavaScript will give it some logic. Okay, like if you click on plus button, the number goes in one. If you click on minus button, your number will come back to 0. Okay, now that's why we need JavaScript to put the logic in our code, and that's the basic need of using JavaScript. Starting with any programming languages, let's get started. Um, I need to close this thing, and we'll start creating a web page really quick. I'm gonna show my desktop here. Remember the last lesson I told you that we will be using Notepad++ just because it helps us to type the code really quick and without wasting the time, because while doing it on Notepad, the basic Notepad, it was quite difficult to type all codes from scratch, you know, like even if you want to add a kind of a new attribute, you need to type the whole thing. In Notepad++, this just eliminates the whole thing. Now, way number two, there are many ways of using JavaScript. Either the way number one is you can embed your code of JavaScript within the HTML. Number two is you can have a separate sheet of JavaScript. I will prefer that we start with the very simple code that is adding the JavaScript within our HTML itself. Okay. Now, starting with HTML, we won't actually need to worry about it. I'm gonna just type the things really quick. Let's just start with. I'm going to type this thing quick because we have done this in previous two lessons, and we don't need to worry about it. So this doc type HTML, and then HTML, and the head, the title next, and let's say learning JavaScript. I'll just write JS here. Sorry about my keyboard, it's just getting kind of slip in the text. Okay, so we get the doc type, we get the HTML, we have the head, we have the title. Now we need to close the head. Okay, we have done this. Yeah, we did have done this. Now remember the last lesson I taught you about how do we link a CSS. Yeah, we will be linking our CSS as well. So I'm gonna say link relation style sheet. I told you to memorize this thing because that's gonna stay, that's gonna stay for a long time, just like this. There won't be any changes in this thing. So if you can memorize this whole line, that will be much cooler because it's going to stay for a long time. Unless you're using Bootstrap or something else, it's going to stay the same. Okay, so we have type like CSS, href. Remember about the file that we're going to save within the same place. It's going to be the same as well. So style.css, we're going to make a file for this later. Close the bracket. Cool. Now let's open the body. I'll close the body tag here, and I'll close the HTML tag here. Cool. Now, let's just make another file, and we will save both of them. First, let's save this thing. Why don't we make a folder and name it as Life Lesson 3. Life Lesson 3. All right. Now, within that one, I'm going to save my HTML, save as. I'll find that folder. It should be my desktop. There it is. And let's name the this to be index.html. Okay, that's the HTML extension. And let's name this style.css. Why? We have style.css linked over here. So file save as style.css. Cool. So far so good. Now these were the things that what we were learning and practicing in the previous 2 lessons in web development. Today we need to learn more on JavaScript. Now what's JavaScript? JavaScript is a programming language, and it's like one of the most important programming language when it comes to learning web development and more on creating web pages that are dynamic. And JavaScript is one of the mostly used as well, and it's one of the uh, what I can say, highly programmed and used by professionals. And even when you are even doing a graduation, just like I did from engineering, these were kind of a basic language you need to learn in order to work with computers and to solve lot of problems. And yeah, definitely to get some important things done. Now, let's start with JavaScript. JavaScripts have variety of libraries and lot of codes. You don't actually have to worry about it right now because that's going to be our basic. Okay. Now JavaScript, just like HTML, where HTML uses p tag, in JavaScript we use the document type. Before we start with that, just as I told you in start, that there are 2 ways to do that thing. Either you can have a separate sheet of JavaScript just like we have for CSS, or you can add the JavaScript within your HTML code. Cool. I'll give you an example from Google. Let's just wait for it to load. I will give you an example from Google. Let's take an example of Google. So that's the Google page. Most of us are quite familiar with it. So I'm going to open the page source. All right. I know it looks kind of really crazy, like, oh my God, there are too many things. But this is one of the, that's what we are making right now. You might be seeing a script tag over here, or you can actually find it out here. I'm just finding where I can find the script tag. Uh, hmm, there we are. That's the style. All right. Remember about the CSS? There we go. I'm gonna zoom in. I don't actually want to find it. I want you to see the whole code. Now the codes you're looking is more of the CSS, and they just added the CSS on top. And this is they just added, look over here. There we go. Now, line number one, doc type HTML item scope, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to worry about these still. You don't have to worry about this. Now, look here, I told you, right? Most of the things are quite same. And yeah, they have encryption here, and we cannot actually get and catch up with what Google is doing here. But what I can tell you is, if you look over here, they have something called script. That's JavaScript. Okay, that's script. Now, if you scroll down, they might have another script used for the JavaScript code. You're right. There you go. So we have, this is the script tag. Cool. The script tag is actually opening, or that's quite. Oh my God, that's a big JavaScript code. Really? So they are actually opening. The script tag is opening over here. That's a huge JavaScript code. So they started the JavaScript over here, and they ended. Oh my God, that was too big. They ended over there. Cool. Now, this is CSS and more kind of styling. This is actually more into the Bootstrap and Angular, but yeah, that's how the styling works. And they started the styling over here and might be ending over somewhere over here, most probably. Maybe I missed it. I'm too in a hurry. By the way, I got the another style. This is style number 2. Cool. Style number 3. And that's how they complete the whole web page. In the end, you're going to be in the same way that we did. Uh, let's scroll down. That's 309, 67 lines of code. By the way, look over here. They're ending the JavaScript, they're ending the body tag, and they're ending the HTML tag, all three together at the bottom. Cool. And yeah, oh my God, that's too much. We don't have to worry about any of these. So let's come back to our main code. Forget everything. Don't think of anything what happened. Look here, how's JavaScript work? Because JavaScript is one of the basic language in developing web pages. So we can simply just say script. Even if we are not describing which language are we using, your HTML code will take it as a JavaScript code, okay? Now, coming in JavaScript code, let's just write our first JavaScript line, and that will be alert. What does alert do? Alert help us to pop a alert box on your web page, and in your web page we will say alert, welcome stranger. Oh, okay, stranger is too bad. Let's say welcome learner. Okay, now I add a semicolon. That's the rule. So we have alert, welcome learner, semicolon. Cool. And I'm gonna save my web page, the HTML one, and let's go and open it. Cool. So it says, the site says welcome learner, and that's the alert box that what we have created. Cool. Now if I click OK, there is nothing actually there. So let's just even design a really simple HTML beside that. So if you want to just work all together, make sure you are arranging and tidying up your code often to not get messed around with your codes. So let's just say H1 goes over here, and I say learning, or let's say welcome to JavaScript. Welcome to JavaScript. Okay. And I'm going to close the H1 over here. Now, we'll get a paragraph from Wikipedia or something about JavaScript. So we can do it over here. Let's say H3. What is JavaScript? Close the H3 tag, field set, legend, content from. I'm just making a learning for learning. We are doing all this for learning. So don't worry about if you're copying the text from internet. We are not publishing as ourselves, and we are not using any kind of plagiarism. It's all giving the credit to as well. So yeah, our only purpose is to learn about how thing works, not to use them professionally or personally. So let's say JavaScript, Wikipedia. I will definitely try to search for JavaScript Wikipedia. All right, let's just copy this thing to make it look much better. I have got an idea. What we can simply do is come back here, paste it, send this into the legend. So cut. Okay, and yeah, we don't need this line. Exactly, we don't need that line. Cool. Now let's close the field set. We can do this in CSS as well, but let's just do it over here. So let's just break a line and make it italic. So I just made that italic. And yeah, what it says, not to be confused with Java programming. Java, software platform, JavaScript, and yeah, yeah, that's quite simple. And that's another topic. We don't have to worry about them for now. I'm just gonna make it bold as well. Yeah, you might be knowing there are different languages. The one I did it in the very first lesson, that there are different languages and they do some kind of different work according to their properties, according to their usage. Now, we are learning JavaScript because we are more interested in developing the web pages instead of making a mobile app. So if you're making a mobile app, you'll definitely go with Java and Android Studio. If you're making a Apple app, you're going to go with the Swift code, and that's how Xcode and Android Studio all work together. So it definitely start with the purpose. So if your purpose of something, you need to learn a language accordingly, just like learning English, mathematics, social science, and so on. So I just got a paragraph ready. I'm going to close that paragraph. Yeah, so there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs I just copied. I'm going to break this paragraph. Let's say we're going to have 2 lines breaking, and open the other one. Copy, paste, copy, paste, paste. Oh, done. All right, save. Uh, Still got quite messy, so I'm gonna keep it simple. Let's just add some comments here. So the comments will be, no need to comments. It's gonna still make it too much of coding. I don't want you to feel like we are actually coding a lot of stuff. So we have a script tag here. That's for JavaScript, and there is a web page below. Mm, okay, that's a web page that we have. So I'm just wanted to show you how this works. So if we refresh this web page, we again gonna get this box, the alert box popping up and saying, "Welcome learner." And once we click on OK over here, we see our web page. Cool. Let's go. That's how the web page works with JavaScript. Now, let's just customize that more often. Let's just come back here, and within the script tag, here is all JavaScript code going in this place. Now, in JavaScript, you can even, if you want to type something on the HTML, this is one of the technique in which you can you can actually access the element that is inside the web page. Let's say your HTML and JavaScript work closely together. So let's say you want to uh, change the heading here. Okay, let's just do it over there. I'm gonna have another heading. Let's say H4. Let's keep it H2 and say I am in HTML. And I'll close the H2 here. Okay, cool. Then I'm going to scroll down and open the script tag. See how closely we are working together. That's the HTML, and then we are working with JavaScript. We just need to divide within the tags about what you're actually coding in. So yeah, so I'm in HTML, and let's give it an ID. I'm going to give it an ID of, let's give it an ID 1. Okay. All right. Now we give it an ID 1, and I told you about ID in our previous lesson. So let's give it an ID 1, and within the script tag, let's say document dot get element by ID. All right. Within the parentheses, we're going to write the ID, the actual ID that we have. That's one over here. Close that. Dot inner HTML equals whatever you want to write. I'm going to say now I am in JavaScript. Okay, I'll close this thing and semicolon here. Cool. Now, before running that, I might cut this thing. I won't keep it in my text anymore, just to show you about how the things are working. Let's just refresh our web page. Welcome, learner. Okay, that's fine. Now, if you look over here, it says I'm in HTML. Okay. Now, coming back, this is here. I'm gonna make it quite bigger. That's the code, and that's over here. I'm in HTML, and that's how it's getting printed. Cool. Now, below that, I'm gonna add the code that we just did. Script document.getElementById1 .innerHTML. Now I'm in JavaScript. Let me save it. Refresh it. Welcome, learner. Yeah. You see the difference? Now it says, now I'm in JavaScript. Cool. Now I'm going to tell you what actually happened here. What actually happened here was you said document. Document is exactly your code that you're typing. Get element by ID. So all the tags that we see here are called elements. And we give it an ID called 1. So we are referring to the ID 1 dot inner HTML. So we're referring to the HTML sheet. And we're going to give it a different text. So you can actually do like that for the rest of your codes to change interchangeably HTML to JavaScript and much more. And that's how you keep your website dynamic. Yeah, there were too many kind of things we learned today, and it might be kind of making you kind of scratch your head, but you don't have to. Let me go with really simple. Start again. Now let's say script document. This is the last thing that we're going to learn today. Document.write hello world. Okay, that's the most famous thing that we all programmers do. I'm going to close the script tag here. There we go. Cool. Save it. Let's run it. Do you see? Now, using the document.write, you can even write so many things that you want to do. So while learning JavaScript, we might have to learn about few of the codes, but the code that we learned today was alert, hello world. We learn about the alert boxes. We learn about document.write. Document.write is a simple print statement in JavaScript, okay? And the third was document.getElementById. Let's take an example by H1. And let's give it an ID. It's a really simple ID 1. And we keep it simple, nothing more. We keep it simple. And let's keep it empty as well. So our web page is quite empty now because there is nothing inside the H1. We're going to add the H1 over here by typing document.getElementById. 1 dot inner HTML. Just need to follow the same syntax, okay? In order to run your code well, learning JavaScript. Semicolon. Semicolons are important in JavaScript. Cool. Things are good. Let's just run this web page. Refresh. Hello world. Good. So we run with the alert box. Now we change that into the from JavaScript into HTML, and we have a document.write. Cool. Now, just we added the CSS. Let's complete our kind of just to make it look cooler. So let's say H1 background color to be white, color to be red. Right. That's it. And body. Okay. I think body should be go in top. So actually just leave it as it is. Let's keep it as simple as we can. So that's the body, and let's refresh the whole thing. Hello world, and there we go. Oh, maybe hello world. Okay, let me come back. Oh yeah, my designing is kind of really weird. Let's change the white because the background is actually white. Let's keep it the background yellow. Okay, Control S, save it. Did we add the CSS? Okay, yes, we have added style sheet type, text CSS, everything is fine. The H1 is fine. Oh, did we save it? Yes. Let me close it and reopen it from the folder I have. Let's go. Hello world. Okay, click on OK, and there we go. Cool. So we are done with most of our code now. And I hope that things are much more simpler today for JavaScript. I know it was your first lesson learning JavaScript, so things might be quite hard to understand. You might feel that it's so complicated, but actually it's not. It's really, really, really simple. In order to learn JavaScript, you might have to just have lot of practices, and the more practice you do, the more easier it gets, and that's how it works with every programming languages. Okay, so we just added really simple codes, and it was just like, how can we have an alert box? How can we use a document.write? And how can we use uh, the what do you say, using the HTML and JavaScript together, that document.get element by ID. Cool. And we'll just stop it here because next lesson onwards, I'm going to keep it more detailed one. All these three lessons, starting from the very first one, introduction to HTML, creating the web pages, the CSS and JavaScript, where just to give you an idea, an introduction about what are and how it is to be create a web pages. Okay. And once we have, now we have an idea about how these three languages work together. Coming up lessons, we will try to make some more functional, dynamic, and working websites to make it much more useful, and let's see how cooler it gets later on. And I think that will be fine for this lesson. I'm gonna just save this whole thing, and let's just stop the meeting over here, and yeah, coming back. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the whole lesson structured out there. If you have any questions, anything that you might find it difficult, don't worry about any of the programming codes. Don't worry about the JavaScript codes as well. Don't worry about how I did all that thing, because these three lessons, as I told you, was about introduction, and was just to tell you about how the thing works. How do you make websites, and what's actually the basic knowledge behind them. But later on, we're going to learn each one of them in detail. We even will kind to explore more on it, and I'm going to keep it much more simple, like always. Uh, Sorry for the time. If I was quite really fast in something, I'll try to get the things much better in the next tutorial as well. Okay, so I will be seeing all in our next lesson. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Please share, like, and subscribe to the page. And if you have anything, please ask me. Thank you, and I hope I will see you sooner. Goodbye, guys.